Art meshes are the structure of points that allow you to change the shape of your art layer, and these points get moved and remembered by the program to deform the shapes that you need to create a 3D effect. For example, if you want to make a model look to the right, you need to move the art mesh points to their looking right location. This would bend and deform the art in a way that makes the model seem like it's actually looking to the right. And that's pretty much what we're doing for everything. If we want the eyes to close, we would tell the art mesh points from our eye layers to move from here to here. It's pretty simple when you think about it that way. Okay, so let's learn some terminology. A layer is referred to as art, and the structure on top of this art is a mesh, so together we call the combination an art mesh. The mesh itself is built up of vertices, edges, and polygons. Vertices are each individual point, edges are the lines connecting 2 points, and polygons are the triangles created between 3 points. The golden rule for art meshes is to make sure that there's enough evenly spaced polygons to make smooth deformations, but not too many because it will make the model heavier on your PC. Especially when every single layer has an art mesh, keeping things as detailed but as optimized as possible is key. But don't worry, we're going to go over how to properly make and optimize your art meshes. First, let's learn how to create an art mesh. By default, Live2D assigns a square art mesh to every single layer, and this is why your model would look very flat if you didn't add better art meshes, because only 4 points can move your art and they're outside of the art itself. Creating a structure inside the art allows you to have control over deforming the entire thing. So to create an art mesh, we can look at this button in our toolbar. It looks like a polygon with the word auto. This is our auto mesh generation tool, and like the name suggests, it automatically creates an art mesh for our selected art layers. Within either our parts or deformer window, we can select an art layer that we want to generate for, and once selected, we can press the auto generate button. A small window will appear, and these are the settings of the auto generation. Here we have a preset dropdown that allows us to choose from one of 3 options: standard, deformation little, and deformation heavy. We can select the standard option and you'll see that the program automatically generates an art mesh for us. If we were to select little or heavy, you'll see that the numbers below in the settings category will change, and also the density of our points on the art mesh itself. Heavy will be a lot denser of a mesh, and little will be a lighter one. For 90% of VTuber rigging at the beginner level, we'll just use standard or heavy auto generation. The program does a pretty decent job at creating art meshes for us, so we can get straight into the rigging. The alternative to auto-generating is to manually create art meshes yourself, and it's the next button over, which has a little pen instead of the word auto. This button will bring us into a new window with only an art layer selected. Our tool details window will now also display some tools that will help us manually create some meshes. We have a pointer and selection tool to help us move and select points. We have an add, remove, and erase points button. The next button over allows us to add points within an existing polygon, and our last button allows us to create a structure of polygons that follow a line. We also have an auto generation button here too if we need. Again, like I mentioned, at the beginner level, only the most detailed parts will need a manual mesh, especially for something like the main eyelash, which does a full deformation in the opposite direction when closing. A bad art mesh would cause the edges of this eyelash to be rough, while a clean and optimized one would look smooth throughout the entire animation. In future lessons, we'll make it clear which art layers should manually be created, because it's never worth it to take the time to make detailed art meshes when you haven't yet learned the rigging methods fully to utilize them. But before the end of this lesson, let's just take a look at what creating a manual art mesh would look like. With a layer selected, press the manual mesh edit button, and we can select the eraser tool and remove our existing points. To resize the eraser, you can hold down the B key on your keyboard and then left click and drag your mouse left and right to resize. We can now erase all the existing points, leaving us with a blank art piece. Like mentioned before, we can use our add point tool to add points to our art mesh, but the better way to do this is to use our stroke mesh mapping tool. With this tool selected, you can left click and draw a line along the edge of our art, and you'll see a structure appear. In our tool details window, you can see that some settings appear for this structure. I like to change the number of vertices in mesh width to 3, and you'll see that this will change the structure from being 2 vertices wide to 3. Raising or lowering our mesh width and repeated density numbers will also change how the structure looks. You can click and drag the green dots or at any points along the green line to move the structure and align it to the edges of your art. Lastly, you can also hold down Control and click and drag any of these points outward to resize the width of the structure at that point. The key here is to create a detailed and evenly spaced structure along the edges. This is what protects the edges from breaking when deforming. Once finished, you can confirm the stroke by clicking the button here or pressing Shift E. Now you can add more points or even another stroke. In this case, we'll draw another stroke across the bottom. We'll confirm that as well, and now we can use our add point tool to connect our 2 lines and form a completed art mesh. You can connect these points yourself or connect just the outer parts until these blue guidelines appear. Then you can press the auto connect button to have the program finish off the mesh for you. Once finished, you can press the blue check mark up here and this mesh is now ready to go. If you don't connect the lines or leave a portion of your art not covered by any of the art mesh, you will see that your art will be cut off. This is because Live2D will only display art that's within the area of a closed art mesh. So just make sure that you have everything covered and connected before exiting. When I start new rigging progress, I usually like to generate all the art meshes for every part at once and then manually edit the ones that I need more detailed later. You can select all the art layers from your deformer window and then press the auto generate button and press standard. After it loads, you'll have a very scary looking model from a lot of different points, which is exactly why I told you to keep your art meshes as minimal as possible so it doesn't make your PC explode. So that was a lot of information to take in, so please watch the video back and try creating some art meshes for yourself. The only way to get better is to get into the program yourself and start messing around. Our next lesson is going to cover deformers, which will allow us to group our layers and deform them or move them all into the same shape. We're one step closer to actually bringing your first model to life, so sit tight and I'll see you in the next lesson.